Sit back, relax. You are about to watch a Peter Gregg video. Something warm, human, and wonderful happens when you watch Peter Gregg.
There's a lot of people that are making preparations for the possibility of a new Sony camera, which would be the A7 Mark III. There's no Mark in there, but we've gotten in the habit of saying it. So sometimes I might say A7 III or A7 Mark III. That all is kind of like how the spirit moves me. Okay, so if you are not a Sony user, that means chances are you don't have a lot of Sony lenses on hand. I've looked around everywhere and I have none, zero. The one that's on that camera came with that camera and it's a loaner. When the camera goes back, the lens goes back and I'll have no Sony lenses. So if an A7 III comes here, I need a lens to put on it. So the possibilities are the lens that's on it right now. So the lens that's on there right now is the 50mm 1.4 F like Frank, E like elephant. And that's a $1,400 lens. Pretty expensive for a 50mm. Now I have to say that the quality of it is pretty remarkable. So it's not a low-end 50mm because we do have a choice of a 50mm 1.8 lens, which I might get in here to test. We'll have to see what happens. So what I do have here is a couple of things, but first I'm going to show you what I'm going to do to test it, because I can tell you, well, let me tell you what I'm going to do to test it. I'm going to stand at the desk. I have face detection on. We are at f1.8, not f1.4, just in case the possibility of the f1.8 lens becomes a reality. I'm at f1.8, 1/60th of a second in 30p. I white balanced, so this is not auto white balance. This is white balance with a better white balance. There's a link for this tool down below in the description. So I'm going to go from here. I'm going to go over there where Jingle sits, where he's not right now. Then I'm going to come back to the desk, and then I'm going to walk over to the chair, and I'm going to sit down in the chair. So this is pretty simple. This is under controlled lighting. The lighting is not high. It's not medium. It's a little bit below medium. There's a 60-watt light bulb in a soft box in front of me. Same thing behind me for a hair light. And there's one on the side aimed up at the ceiling in a softbox just to raise the ambient light in the room. Okay, so I'm going to do this test with these different things. Now I happen to have a 24mm art lens from Sigma. It's a 1.4. So I have the Sigma MC11 adapter. With the MC11 adapter, this goes on the camera first, then this goes on here, and I can put any Canon mount type lens on to this adapter. Now, doing some reading, I found out that this Sigma adapter works best with the Sigma lens. Who would have thought? Of all things, right? So we're going to test that combination. Then we're also going to test this 50mm 1.2 Canon L lens with a Metabones adapter with the newest firmware. This is a Metabones, they call it a 4 or it becomes a 5 with the new firmware. But these two are supposed to work together well, is what I have read. Now I have tried mixing them, the Sigma lens on here and then the Canon lens on the Sigma adapter. Those don't work, so I'm not going to show you that. It's not a good combination for video. Now the surprising thing is these just came in from B&H. They came in this morning, so these have not been sitting around. Neither one had the newest firmware, so I had to update the firmware on both of them, and that meant connecting the adapter to the computer and downloading the firmware. Both of them went very smoothly, no problems. All right, so let's do the walk around test. This is the $1,400 lens. This is the one that's made by Sony on the Sony camera. This is the one that I would say very much matches the Canon L 1.2 lens. Actually, it's actually sharper than this lens, but this lens has a little more character. But as you can see, this Sony lens works really well with the Sony body. So let's take a walk over here. We're going to think that Jingles is over here. Jingles, you coming over? Come on, because we got to do some tests. Ella. Ella, though. Don't just sit. Oh, I'll fix your towel up for you. Okay, there you go. Now it's all fluffed up there. All right, so now we're not watching the dog, ladies and gentlemen, and we're not even watching me. What you are watching is the focus ability of this in the video mode for the Sony 50mm 1.4 FE lens. Now I'm back up to the table. I can turn to the right, my right, it'll be your left. I can turn to my left, it'll be your right. What is this, a comedy routine? Who's on first? Now I'm going back over here to the chair, which I often do, and I'll sit down here, and first I'll give the autofocus a chance to get on me. Then I'll sit down. There's no camera that's perfect. I mean, if we're looking for the perfect camera, I've even had phase detection fail on me on the Canon camera, which this is the Canon 80D. I've activated closed captions, and I have to go in there and correct it because every time I say 80D, it's like ADD, like attention deficit disorder. So I have to, this is not an attention deficit disorder camera. This is an ADD. All right, so this is the first one. All right, the next one I'm going to put on is the Metabones adapter, and I'm going to put the 50mm 1.2 lens. Now the reason I'm doing this is I don't have to move the camera. When I go to the 24mm lens, I'm going to have to make some changes, and I'll tell you exactly what they are. But for right now, let me take this. I'm going to go to the camera, and we're going to change lenses, and I'll edit the walking part out. I'll be right back. Okay, so I don't know what we're watching right now, but my guess is I'm not in focus because this doesn't work all that well. I guess I'm giving you the results right up front, right? Which is not fair. But this is the Canon 50mm L 1.2 lens. I've got it set to 1.8, so it's the same setting that I would use for the Sony Zeiss lens, the f1.4, which I had it set to 1.8. All right, so I'm going to walk over here. Of course, Jingles is left already. And I'm going to stand. I'm going to give the lens a chance. So this is the Metabones adapter, the Mark IV adapter, the 5th generation, or the 5th edition as they call it. And I did have to update the firmware, so you can hear me okay. You're just going to find out if I'm in focus or not. Now I've walked back up to the desk, and I found that it does take a little bit of time to find me, especially if I do a little bit of moving around, and it'll get in focus. But I really don't find this really super acceptable. So that would mean that I would probably have to spring for a $1,400 lens unless the $250 lens will work, which I don't have on hand for this test. But let's go over to the chair, and I'm going to be easy on the camera. I'm being gentle. I took my glasses off to help. And now I'm going to sit down in the chair and see if, not only if it follows me, but if it stays on me, because it can follow me, I notice, but it won't stay on me. So if I had the 50mm L lens, and I say, oh, I'm going to put it on the new Sony a7 III, I'd have to say, no, I'm not. That we're going to have to make a purchase, an additional purchase beyond the camera. So this, I don't think this is Sony's fault. I don't know if it's anybody's fault, but it's just not working very well. All right, now let's switch over to the Sigma. Now I'm going to have to change position of the camera. I'm going to move the tripod forward by 2 feet, and then I'm also going to switch the camera to Super 35 mode, which crops it. And I'm going to use the MC11 Sigma adapter. Okay, so let's put this right into place. Okay, I'm back in here. This is a different 50mm lens I decided before taking all the adapters and taking them off. This is the Metabones adapter with the 50mm 1.8 STM lens. The newest 50mm that Canon has out is on here now. So this might not make it into the video because I don't think this is going to work very well, but I'm going to walk around. I'm going to stand over here real quick. Then I'll go back up to the desk, see if it follows me. I could say hello, how are you doing? And then I'll go over to the chair. As you could tell, I'm not giving this one as much attention because it basically, I don't think it's going to work. But everything's in place, so I put it on. So what do we got cooking here? We now have a Sigma Art lens. I have the 24mm f1.4 in stock, which is one of the lenses that I own. I don't have the 50mm 1.4, so that would be a contender to compete for about $900 compared to this $1,400 Sigma lens. So now we're going to check and see what happens with the face detection. I got my glasses on. I'll take my glasses off. It's still set to f1.8. The lens is capable of going down to 1.4, and it does go down to 1.4. By the way, for the Canon L lens, if I put it down to 1.2, it registers 1.3 on the camera. And eventually, for some reason, maybe it's the new firmware, because I downloaded it today, it'll drift down to 1.2. So it's a little bit weird, but when I actually do the settings, it's 1.3. Now, I interrupted my own video because I got so curious. The Sigma seems to have done a very good job with the MC11 with the Sigma lens, that since I do own this, I want to see how it works at 1.4 before I do the walk around. So I stopped the camera and I set it down from 1.8 down to 1.4. It being a 24mm makes it so I can almost reach out and touch the camera. But I might not have to buy a lens right off the bat. Or if I do, then I probably will be getting the 50mm, one of the 50s that they have out there, but not the one with the Canon mount, because the Metabones for video, it ain't so hot. It just ain't so hot. So let's take a little walk over here, say hi to Jingles, and see how it focuses on me. Now remember, because I'm at a 1.4, every mistake is going to look much bigger, okay? It's going to look significantly bigger. Now, if this guy was sitting over here where he belonged, he'd be on this little towel, right? But since he's not there, but I need to sit over here because that's the way I've done all the tests. So we need to stay consistent. So I'm in the same spot, glasses on, now the glasses are off. Are we pulsing? Are we not pulsing? Is this as good as the Zeiss? It's not as good as the Zeiss. What do you guys think? You got to tell me what you think. Because right now, if this setup works really, really well, I don't have to spend another $1,000 or $1,400. I can use what I've got until I mosey into Sony a little bit, because it's a brand new system for me. Now I'm going to go over to the chair because that's part of our test. I put my glasses back on. I'm coming back over. I'm not walking too quickly. I'm pretending like I'm taking in the beauty of the tree, and I'm going to come and turn around and say, oh my goodness, it's gorgeous. How many people have a Christmas tree up 365 days a year? So it is something that I enjoy. It's our choice to have that up, because this room represents peace on earth and goodwill towards men all year long. And that's why I keep the Christmas tree up, because it sends a message. It's not because I'm some kind of a weirdo that likes Christmas all year long. It is my favorite holiday. So now I'm standing up. I'm still talking to you. I'm spending a little extra time, and then I'm coming back over here, walking with my glasses off, which makes it easier on the camera. And if this is working super well, this is like as good as dual pixel focus on a Sony camera, full frame with a blown out background, with a mic jack, everything except we don't have a flip out screen. So I'm trusting it. I don't even have the phone on. The phone is not even in this room. I don't even have it on. All right, so I'm going to put it back to full frame mode, put the Zeiss back on, $1,400 for this lens. So if you guys decide that this is not good enough, I'm going to be forced to spend $1,400 to buy this lens when the A7 III comes in, maybe in just a few weeks now. All right, let me go put the Zeiss back on and we'll finish this out. We're back to home base. The original, the Sony lens, the Sony 50mm 1.4 FE Frank Elephant lens is back on the camera, which is the one that basically their high-end lens that would compete with, let's say, the 50mm Canon L lens, which is a 1.2. This was very disappointing, right? This with the Metabones adapter. Where's the Metabones adapter? All right, here's the Metabones adapter. I've got the 50mm STE on there. So this is the Metabones adapter, and this goes on the Sony, and this is the 50mm lens. Okay, now I want to say something that would kind of like cause a dividing line, not between you and me, but between what's happening here. We're looking at video. I'm walking around the room trying to see what's in focus. I'm walking over to, I wanted to make sure that the camera was on and recording. Jingles came back over, so I want to make sure I give him a little bit of attention. And you can see how the Zeiss 1.4 just responds very well. Now, it's not perfect. And I did take a look at the videos. So I saw that the Metabones was a fail. It was not only a fail with the 51.2 L lens, it was also a fail with the 50mm 1.8 Canon STM lens. So if I was trying to avoid buying a Sony lens at the high price of, let's say, $1,400 for the 50mm that's on there now, this is definitely not what I would go with. All right. Now, what I would go with is possibly the Metabones, the Sigma MC11 adapter, along with a Sigma lens of your choice. This is the 24. You can pick the 35 or the 50. Now, to make it even more confusing, all right, don't you just love all this confusion? In the picture mode, meaning you're not taking video, you're taking pictures, the Canon L lens worked beautifully with the Metabones adapter. And the Sigma lens worked beautifully with the Sigma adapter. So these adapters are both designed to receive EF mount, Canon mount. I haven't tested it with any other mount. So the Sigma lens is Canon mount. The Canon lens, it's not a Nikon mount, it's a Canon mount, all right? So they both work well in pictures. In pictures, you buy what you want. You'll love it. Trust me. You'll love it. But for video, it needs to perform as well as this. This is not perfect. Don't think, oh, this is perfect. I think it's a little bit better than a dual pixel, which is a mouthful for me because, you know, I'm a dual pixel man. That's the one I like. That's the one I wanted. But with the price of the A7 III, $2,000, the next question is which lens. So since I already have a very good quality Sigma Art lens, this is like a $900 lens, all I need is this adapter, which I did buy, okay? I was planning on returning it if it didn't work, but it's working well enough so that I'm not in a pressure position when the camera comes in. Now, I was saying, this lens is not perfect. If I come over here and stand here, you'll see it miss a little bit. Probably not now that I'm telling you it could miss, okay? But it does miss a little bit. None of them are perfect. Dual pixel focus from the Canon 80D is not perfect. This is not perfect, but this is on par with the Canon dual pixel focus. Plus, and here's an added advantage. When you switch to pictures, the camera will switch not only to face detect, it'll switch to eye detect. And if you've seen other videos, it looks like a stinking video game. You know, it's like all these green dots are just like dancing all over the place, and it's absolutely amazing. It's just like you get mesmerized by watching it. So the focus system is quite advanced, really, really, really advanced. So my guess is I'm going to wind up using the Sigma MC11 adapter with the Sigma lens that I already own. and then maybe grow that maybe by 1 or 2 lenses. Now, if you're not that super concerned about getting such a crazy blown out background like I've got here, okay, because that's very impressive to me, for a certain situation, then you know the GH5 is still in the running to be your camera. You can get a better, let's say, blown out background by going to the, where do I have it? Hello, 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 where are you? This is the Olympus f1.2 lens. And Olympus works perfectly on the Panasonic camera. They're both micro four thirds. And then if you were going to do, let's say, vlogging or something like that, Olympus has a new lens coming out that's also 1.2, but instead of 25 millimeters, it's 17 millimeters. So you can actually hold the camera out and have it look like a normal vlogging camera. And it has image stabilization in it. And if you're within 5 feet, the focus and the face detection on the GH5, very, very good. As a matter of fact, you can get the GH9 and you'll be just as well, to be honest with you. You don't have to spend as much money. If you have, let's say, the G85, the 17 millimeter f1.2 Olympus lens on the G85, the G85 has got image stabilization on it. It's got the flip out screen. It's got a mic import jack. You're set, you're home free. Okay, so you definitely need to try the 17 millimeter 1.2. But if I even put that here, my background will not be that creamy, you know, three-dimensional look that I personally want. That's a desire that I want. This is how you pick your camera. What's your priorities? For me, it's important as a wedding photographer to blow out the backgrounds. The backgrounds have to be completely creamy, because that's what sets it off, and people recognize that. Maybe not you, okay, but the brides that I've had for years and years and years, when they see that three-dimensional look, oh, how pretty, how gorgeous it looks. So I need to do that, and that's why I want to do that for my videos. So the only full-frame choice I have is a Sony, unless I go to the Canon 1DX Mark II, which is over $5,000. And I'm still not quite full frame. I'm at a 1.3 crop, but I bet you it's close enough. But it's $5,000, okay? For a YouTube camera, that's a little high. If I was active in wedding photography and pictures and stuff like that, I could say, okay. But then you have other new things coming out, like the silent shutter. Very important in today's photography. Video is a silent shutter, so I don't even have to say anything about that. So that's my conclusion. I wanted you to see. I didn't hide the videos from you. The ones that are not in focus are not in focus. What can I tell you? Okay, so that's about it. The only other lens that's a possibility is the 50 millimeter 1.8, which is a $250 lens. If that works, then I don't need the $1,400 lens. But I won't be able to find that out unless I try it. All right, so that's it for today. Me and Jingle Bells. Did we have a good time? He's a little sleepy today, but he's been feeling pretty good, thank God. All right, Peter Gregg, Miami, Florida. Catch you later. Whoosh!
You have just watched another Peter Gregg video. Something warm, human, and wonderful happens when you watch Peter Gregg. Thank you for watching. Description of all equipment used in this video, plus any notes Peter took while filming, are always placed in the description box, show more box, or down arrow thingy next to the title on mobile apps. Duly noted.